If I asked you what this book was about, or more particularly who this book is about, I'm guessing you'd probably all answer that this is a story about God, right? And absolutely right. It is the story of God. But if you read through the pages, what you'll find is that most of the information, most of the stories are actually stories of people. And that's because the simple truth is that God always uses people to do his work. There's actually very few times throughout the pages of this book where God does something unilaterally without involving any people, right? He parts the Red Sea. He raised Jesus from the dead, right? But in over 2,500 years of history, those things are actually pretty rare, and that is because God always uses people. And I want to suggest to you that that's the same way that we grow spiritually, okay? Because we know God wants you to grow spiritually. The question is, who is he going to use to do that? You might think to yourself, well, God's going to do that. God's going to grow me spiritually. And you're absolutely right. He is, but he's going to use you to do that. That he is not going to grow you without you. He's going to use you. And this is where the spiritual disciplines of the Christian life come into play. And throughout the centuries, Christians have developed and used the Bible to understand and to learn methods and practices in order to learn how to grow. Jonathan Edwards, he says that the spiritual disciplines endeavor to promote spiritual appetites. And they do so by laying yourself in the way of allurement. And I love this concept that the goal of spiritual disciplines is to put ourselves in the way of being allured by God. Now, that's a strange word, allurement, but what comes to mind when I think of being allured by something, or to be enticed by something, or to be enthralled by something, what comes to mind is walking down the mall. For some reason, no matter where I go in the mall, I smell a very particular smell, and that is the smell of Cinnabon. I mean, that smell is just enticing to me. I love that smell. It makes me want to go eat a Cinnabon. And I could be 100 yards away, not even thinking about it, but I smell that, and I am allured. Now, our spiritual appetites are not quite the same as our physical appetites, right? But the principle is there, that if we want to enliven those spiritual hungers, and we want to stir that within us, then we need to place ourselves in the way of that allurement. And so we have to put ourselves there. But now, with physical hungers and appetite, it's pretty routine. With spiritual appetites, it doesn't work that way. I can't do the same thing every time. In fact, I have to learn other methods. I have to learn other practices. And sometimes the thing I did last week or last year or 10 years ago isn't quite the same anymore. It doesn't quite do the same thing. God has made us each different, and our spiritual appetites are different. So for some people, they can sit and pray for hours at a time, and if that's you, God bless you. But there's other people who would rather just spend time with people, and for some people, that's scary. We're all designed differently, and so we need to study the spiritual disciplines, to know about how to put ourselves in that place where God can pour down his blessing on us and where we can be more in touch with who he is. And that's why we study the spiritual disciplines.